let's pick our pens and prayerfully pick as much as God will use our facilitator to communicate with us as we hope to improve our financial status and all ramifications of our life. And I also want to use the opportunity to welcome our facilitator. I know our compare is going to do well to formally introduce him before he takes the floor. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. Okay, straight to the point. Like I said, we don't want to waste time. All protocols really observed. I should have especially welcomed my HOD, but I'm sure you understand. Okay, so let's go straight to the citation of our facilitator. Like my Ramgolan said, I'm sure we're gonna have a small time this afternoon because we have a seasoned facilitator among us. His name is Mr. Yomi Adeyemi, and he is an investment professional with over 20 years diverse experience across banking, business advisory, and investment management. A graduate of mathematics and statistics and fellow of both the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers and Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. He is also CFA, Chartered Holder, and an alumnus of the Lagos Business School Executive Program. Yomi has attended various training programs in finance, leadership, and governance internationally, including the Harvard Business School. He is currently the managing director of Fortress Capital Limited, a boutique investment banking and brokerage firm since 2008. Yomi is a serial entrepreneur and investor with business interests across finance, maritime, real estate, media, and advertising. He is a non-executive director of Livestock PLC, Connect Marketing Services Limited, and Red Media Group, and council member of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. He actively plays soccer, squash, and chess. He volunteers for Life Changers Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to assisting the less privileged using education, vocation, and enterprise. With Jesus joy in my heart and with our clapping, please, you can put your clapping on that chat box so that we can see your clapping, or we can see your video. Let's know you're clapping. The clapping ovation, let's welcome into our Mr. Yomi Adeyemi. Mr. Yomi, you're welcome, sir.
Moderator, thank you very much. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to join you this afternoon to discuss what I consider an important topic around basically our personal finance and general entrepreneurship and business management. When I got a call to facilitate this session, two things came to mind because at least in the topic, there were two things that really jumped at me. First is strategies for building wealth. Then the second is the post-pandemic economy. So I was looking at myself and I said, okay, yes, what experience do I have in probably dealing with both that I can at least claim to and at least claim to be an authority to speak to people with diverse interests and diverse experience like you are. But I just feel that, okay, funny enough, at least I've been in investment management for well over 20 years now. And even if I haven't yet built my own wealth fully or in a way, I think in the course of my interaction and business, I've done quite a bit relating with people that I consider wealthy. And in that regard, I also have learned quite a bit. And I tend to see or tend to believe that strategies for wealth building is indeed timeless. It's not really for just a very unique situation that we currently are experiencing worldwide, which is at least the pandemic that we all know about, but just an opportunity for us to, even in our own little way, continue to grow our wealth. So I'll jump right into the few slides that I have as presentation to you. I hope you all can see my slide, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so like I said, at least our topic is world building strategies in a post-pandemic environment or post-pandemic economy, as we have it. I'll be running through a brief introduction, which I believe I've done, what pandemic is, the economic impact, and the consequences of pandemic. And we'll spend a bit of time talking all around wealth, the difference between being wealthy and being rich, sources of income that people may have, and we'll draw so much on the timeless strategies, just like I mentioned, of wealth building. Then we have personal wealth creation, and I will try and just at least give my own opinion and outlook on the post-pandemic environment, where I think there are opportunities and what I feel at least some of us may be doing. I'm also very conscious of the fact that we're not all at the same stage of life. We all don't probably have the same experience and exposure to investing. And even in that ladder of accumulating wealth, I believe we all are at different steps. So there will be some of the things I will be talking about that I believe quite a number of people will have heard before. And I also believe that even in this conversation as well, there will be things that are not necessarily new, but what I've come to realize in life that common knowledge may not necessarily be common practice. And when we're talking about wealth, at least it's more of a practical thing than at least even the knowledge that we have or the information that we have. Lately, at least in my day-to-day interaction with people, I generally find that compared to before COVID, and now that we're getting a hold of it, there's been a lot more people who seem lost, confused, are unsure of what they're doing, unsure about their businesses, unsure about their career. They just don't have clarity around, what's going to happen next. A lot of people seem perplexed. Few people are bewildered and disoriented about life generally. And I keep listening when people ask questions. At least you've had to deal with quite a number of people. A lot of people feel that the kind of income or salary they earn is too insignificant, that there's even no point starting the journey of building wealth in the first instance. Some people have even lost jobs and they're currently actively searching for one and they can't find it. I think just last week, the official statistics of unemployment coming out of a country like Nigeria, is staggering, and a lot of people are just confused. So even with some of those numbers, a lot of people have even given up on looking for a new job or any other thing to do. We've also seen that the pandemic at least are also taking some lives, and some of those people who've lost actually breadwinners of their family. So the entire family just do not know what to do. A few people have children who are at home and they're struggling to pay fees, and there's just a lot of confusion, all around the environment now. And for a lot of us who live in Nigeria or who reside in Nigeria, given the various news that we hear every day, various negative news, various things around government, around corruption, we even Christians, some of us begin to wonder, is it even possible for us to build wealth in Nigeria within this corrupt environment and with everything, with doom and gloom and everything, So it's really very interesting, and I think we would dwell a bit more on that as the presentation goes on. But generally, at least, what is a pandemic? I know it's a word that a few of us it seems like the word originated just about 18 months ago, but apparently at least it's been around the world before before us had witnessed pandemic in the past, at least, and generally just an AIDS situation that affects largely the entire world. At least it goes across countries. So it's something that affected that affects the whole world. The current one that we're all dealing with is what we all, at least, we're used to now, which is called COVID-19. When it originated in December 2019, if I remember correctly, in China, in Wuhan, a few of us in Nigeria, we just felt, oh, it was one of those things. At least there was one NSAS or SARS that they had, a few years ago that we felt was just going to go away. It won't truly get here. But apparently, the virus found its way to Europe, came to Africa, and before we actually know it, sometime in March last year, the World Health Organization actually declared it a pandemic, which affected the entire world. And it's also something in the scale of the Spanish flu that happened in the 1920s that was reported to affect about 500 million people. For the COVID, at least we're still not at that level in terms of numbers, but we're getting close. At least as at March, we currently, at least the virus had affected almost 120 million people, and it's also has led to about almost 3 million deaths. So it's something that is so significant, and it's in a region of what I believe most of us haven't experienced before. So with the health situation as a result of the pandemic also came a lot of situations that were unusual and uncommon. We saw a period, I think just about a year ago, where most countries shut down. Nothing was happening. All economic activities were really ground to a halt. Nobody could do anything. Then with all economies shutting down, we witnessed within that very short period a sharp global recession because nothing was happening, trades weren't going on. And it was something that was only comparable to the Great Depression of 1929. With negative impact on travel, tourism, and entertainment industries. A lot of people felt it, a lot of industry felt it, but travel, tourism, and entertainment were really significantly impacted. At least that is expected because these are industries that thrive on human interaction, that thrive on movement, and immediately all the economies decided to shut down, nothing was happening. There were full closure of educational institutions, at least in terms of physical learning. In the process, at least a lot of institutions also became innovative, introduced some form of online learning and for the kids that were at home. There was also widespread supply shortages of essential items for a lot of, at least, countries. Most of the supermarkets were empty. People were worried about having enough of things that they used to having, so there were panic buying, and it was really a period where we all just didn't know exactly what was going to happen and what to do. That period also, we witnessed postponements and cancellation of a lot of global events, both global and local anyway. At least I'm sure we all remember that we're meant to have Olympics in 2020 in Japan. It's been postponed to this year, and there's still so much uncertainty on whether that will happen or not. Expo 2020, was also expected to take place in Dubai. Well, probably, hopefully, that may still happen this year as well. And for a lot of people as well, the pandemic also brought with it job losses, and that comes directly from the effect it had on businesses. So anyone who probably was running a restaurant and people are at home, they couldn't do anything, had to sack people who were working for them. People, we saw what happened to most of the airlines as well. Quite a number of them had to get support, had to get financial support from government or from investors and everything. So what actually struck me during that period was how fragile the whole world economy, was at that point in time, and probably it still is at the moment, in the sense that once there is a shock to the system, there's just tend to be a total collapse, so to speak. That shock apparently was something that we didn't expect. I'm not sure anyone by the end of, in the third quarter of 2019 will have predicted what happened just 6 months after. So, and that speaks to things around our preparedness, generally, even with our businesses, with things that we do. And what, as Christians, as is what we also even need to, at least we need to just be prepared, because we never know when a lot of things would happen, no matter how unexpected they are. A few things happened even with the pandemic as well. We saw that work for a lot of people moved remote. Everybody at some point had to at least stay at home and work. A few people who couldn't, because at least there were a few jobs that just couldn't be done remotely, and those tend to suffer more than people who can still find a way of doing their work at least remotely and sending it in. Like I mentioned earlier, a few schools and institutions introduced online learning. I noticed that even the Harvard Business School offered a lot of online courses, and even now, at least, most of those online courses have actually come to stay. There were a bit of pressure even on health facilities. A lot of people had to go to hospitals, people who were affected by the virus. And because a lot of things also moved online, at least we saw that there was some kind of increase in cybersecurity risk. But one of the things that also stayed with me anytime I think about the effect or the consequence of that of that period is that suddenly it seems as if there was emergence of new industries, so to speak. There were just things that we weren't used to, and it was more like a significant or a serious paradigm shift. A lot of people never believed that work could be done from home, and we saw that there are organizations that have had their staff working from home for a year now. And when they release their financial results, and they seem to have even done better, than when people had to actively go to work and everything. And for us, and we've seen the impact of what the pandemic also even had on how we used to do things. We saw the impact it had on having online meetings, and just like what we're having now. We've seen that even technology that facilitated some of these online meetings did extremely well even during the period. The valuation increased significantly. We saw what happened to Amazon and a few other online platforms for shopping. And some of those things just happened. And just before then, everybody in business had always considered the environment, general economic and business environment has been volatile, uncertain, and complex with a lot of ambiguities. But when that happened, it just exacerbated it, and everybody, really, a few people actually benefited from the pandemic situation as well. A few people and a few industries. So it speaks to at least a few things. Speaks to luck. A few speaks to being prepared, and some of those things we will consider as the presentation goes on. So generally, what is wealth? And over time, I believe there are A few people have different different definition for wealth. I think one thing that is common to everything, most times when we hear wealth, we think about money, at least, So one significant thing about money is that wealth is that it must be measurable. But the Oxford Dictionary defined wealth as an abundance of valuable possessions or money, a plentiful supply of a particular desirable thing. That is, that thing must be desirable. It must be in abundance. That is, abundance in the sense that you must have more than you can use immediately. So it's also defined as an accumulation of valuable economic resources that can be measured in terms of real economic goods or money. That's how Investopedia also defined wealth. And what that also speaks to, we're seeing accumulation, we're seeing abundance, we're seeing things that are just, something that is just small and something that is of value. The concept of wealth generally has to deal with scarce economic goods. So anything that is scarce and it has economic value can add to one's wealth, so to speak. So we all know money is scarce, at least for a lot of people and a lot of countries. And so when you have a lot of it, at least we probably just say that you're wealthy. And another thing with wealth is in its measurement. So at what point would you, as a person, just know that you're wealthy? And so one thing is, at least this is also quite personal, is that wealth probably tends to be relative, and where there is some subjectivity around it as well. Obviously, if you have more money than someone, you're probably likely to be wealthier than that person. And but we also now see that because of the subjectivity, it is possible to have more and still not be as confident or as comfortable as somebody who has less. So whilst there is no magic, no bullet, no specific number to really say it is when you cross this number that you are wealthy, even as a person. But one of the things, and there was some definition of wealth I came across some time ago, and it says that wealth is actually measured in years. And what that simply means is that you may be considered to be wealthy if at any point in time you have enough resources that can continue to sustain you without having to work, if not required, till you die. So if my average cost of annual living or cost of living in a year is 1 million naira, for example, if I have in assets, in passive income, in things that I don't physically, that do not require my attention, and whether I do anything about them or not, can generate more than that 1 million every year on a consistent basis, then I may discover I'm wealthy. At least at that point in time, I truly don't need to do anything. And it's something that I think we probably just need to think about. So even when we look at ourselves and say, okay, yes, my assets, imagine I'm no longer working today. How long will I be able to live at this same level that I am? And I think it's a question that at least virtually all of us may have different answers to. I just feel it would be instructive for us to look at the distribution of global wealth as well, and for me that what jumped at me is actually where we are as a nation and where we are as a continent, and so at least we can see the US accounts for just about 30% of the world wealth, and between China and Japan, who are both in Asia as well, some significant amount. And Europe, by the time we look at all the guys in the EU as a bloc, at least they also represents something very significant. But another thing that I've always looked at, generally we believe that Africa, in terms of resources, actually have the largest, so to speak, when you talk of what we have under the ground and a few of those valuable minerals, that people used to create wealth. And for us as a continent, or for Nigeria as a nation, when we compared our resources to the wealth that we've been able to create, we can see that there's a huge gap. And what that tells me every time is to say that having resources or having something or having money alone doesn't make you wealthy. And it's just as simple as that. So you can have so much, you can keep so much. Wealth is created or generated with what you do with the resources that you have. And I think that is just the lesson here. We've seen countries, we've seen continents, we've seen other people with virtually at least less resources, and a lot wealthier than even the guys who have resources. And we'll have further discussion around that when I'm trying to tie up most of the things that we're discussing. It's also instructive to distinguish between wealth and riches, basically. And one of the things that we know and what people say is it's possible to have money and not be wealthy, just like I said. So if you look at it from the fact that, or from this way that you say money is just more like a resource. Yes, it is scarce. It's a resource. You need to have it, but you can have money and still not be wealthy. You can earn a lot of money even as salaries, and you end up spending almost everything. You can be an entrepreneur, you generate quite a significant revenue, but you don't tend to keep anything, and everything still would find a way of getting out of it, and you will still not create wealth, because so what you have as wealth is what is left after you must have met all obligations. And that's one concept, that's one thing that I think we just need to have as our mind to. And we've seen, and I know for most of us, we've had either friends or know of someone, or maybe us as well, that we earn, at least on paper, so much, and we know ourselves that we're just 1 or 2 months away from poverty, or from not being able to afford the kind of the lifestyle we currently live. Immediately that paycheck or that pay doesn't come at the end of the month. That cannot qualify as wealth. That at best is that you have, okay, you earn money. Maybe at least we can say you are rich. And so there are a lot of people who are rich. And so what I also want to bring out here is that it is not just the fact that for you to be wealthy, you clearly have to be an entrepreneur, or you can be wealthy while you're in paid employment. And I think we would also see that later as well. So in terms of what we do with the money, or what we do with resources that comes into our hands, is that there are various sources of income, and it's basically income divided broadly into active and passive. And active income, are just those kind of incomes that you need to actively work to earn. And what comes to mind immediately is probably what you earn from your job, salaries, depending on what you do, and depending on your profession. We also see that, at least even as entrepreneurs, at least you can actively work to earn income as well. As an entrepreneur, you create a system, an operation to take advantage of an opportunity, and people pay you for it, and you earn revenue and everything. So those are things that you do actively. Some people are lucky, and at least they inherit wealth, at least they inherit money, lots of money, and it depends on what. That is not something that they have done actively, but at least that just comes to them. It now depends on how it is managed. But in terms of what we regard as passive income, at least those are income that you don't necessarily have to do anything to earn. What I mean by that is that you already have resources that you have put aside that is bringing in those income, to you. So what we have dividend, and a dividend is obviously what you earn on equity investments, and most equity investments which represents ownership of an ownership interest in a company, at least can either be in terms of dividend that is declared or capital appreciation. I believe we're all aware of the Nigerian stock exchange or stock exchanges generally and what happens there. There's also investments or income or rental income that comes from properties. At least we all know that people make investments in real estate or in properties, and over time, over the course of holding that property, if it is occupied by someone else, they get income monthly, on annual basis, or whatever period that is agreed, that they get income from those properties. And I know that we've also heard before that technically these two forms of investment, equities and real estate, over the long run tend to be the one that provide some positive return over inflation. Inflation is something that I wouldn't know that we'll have a lot of time even in this presentation to deal with, but at least it's also something that is very important when you talk about building sustainable wealth into the future. Then last but not the least, we have interest income, and that is just what you get from bank deposit or when you put your money in financial institution for a period of time. And so in doing all this, and I think this is actually the meat of this presentation in terms of how do we over time build wealth. And I say over time, that is, for a specific reason, because wealth building is not magic. It is not something that will probably just happen immediately or happen overnight. It's something that is based on some consistent bases and principles that we all. And I am not sure there is anything that's written here that we probably haven't heard before. One important aspect of building wealth by anyone is the fact that you just have to have savings, and savings and remember my first slide, that guy who was complaining that he only earned 40K, and because of that, he probably won't be able to do anything. He can't build, and this speaks to him, and I know so. Over time, people always tend to say there should be some level of consistency in terms of what you decide to keep out of what you earn. The magic number people talk about is 10%. It depends on how you also want to do it. A lot of people are more aggressive, but the truth about it is just that you have to keep something. And for a whole lot of us that are Christians, and I'm sure for people who argue for payment of tithes, one clear argument for anyone to pay tithes is to tell you that, look, if you earn any income and 90% is not enough for you, 100% probably will also be enough, because it's just that 10% anyway. And that's also what happens when you decide to save. If you don't save 10% of what you earn and you just think 90% also won't be enough. It's just as simple as that. So we need to make conscious efforts to save. When we now have those savings, what do we do with it? And for me, the easiest example I use is the parable of talents. Those talents were in like savings, and for you to do, at least for you to truly get anything out of it, is that you must put it to work. Putting it to work means investing it and at least to earn more of it, and that's something that must be done. Another thing is that we personally must avoid debt. I believe there's also a place in the Bible that says that the borrower is servant to the lender. And I think personally, those are some of the things in my life that I say, I'm just adverse to borrowing, you know, to say, well, I don't want to be a servant to anyone. So I think it's just very clean. And from even the secular world, at least they will tell you the poor pays interest, the rich earns it. Depending on, but for me, I always want to clarify that to say it's a function of what you are doing with the borrowing. But don't forget that we're looking at least some of this slide is actually speaking to personal wealth building. Then another thing for us to do in terms of that principle is for us to focus long term. And I think I mentioned that earlier. We've seen a lot of get rich quick schemes. There's so much Ponzi scheme all around. Put money here, you get in another 20 minutes, we'll credit you with 3 times the amount. And you know, MMM, a lot of people who slightly older as well may remember Notspeko. For the very old one, they will remember Umana. You know, there are quite a number of those examples that happened, and it's just a way where people fritter away money. One other thing that is important to everyone would be to always seek and gain knowledge. Knowledge about where to put your money is very important to place your investment, and knowledge about on how to also even improve your skills so that you can increase your earning power is also extremely important as one goes along in life. Then the last but not the least is the need to diversify. And that's really something to safeguard whatever fortune that you've made. And we've seen that no matter how secured or no matter how improbable some situation may appear, anything can happen. And for me personally as well, I learned this lesson the hard way, you know, the market crash of 2007, 2008 in Nigeria as well. And because virtually everything I had were in equities at that point in time. So these days when things happen and, you know, younger people or colleagues come and say, no, I will have to keep some money, at least everything do not have to be in equity. I've mentioned a bit about creating wealth, personal wealth creation. It's around, you know, whether you are active or you're passive, or actively or passively creating wealth. Active is, you know, what you do day to day. An entrepreneur, one of the things that you see when it comes to business risk, and you see someone with an entrepreneurial spirit, generally that they have an above average willingness to take risk. You know, they want to put money in something. They're actively looking for opportunities and everything. And when they have, and they do that for things that they feel that they have control over the business operations, at least they'll be willing to risk almost everything. That's why you see that quite a number of entrepreneurs, it is that business that accounts for virtually everything that they own, and all their life savings and everything has been invested in that. For a lot of people who make passive income, and it's either something from inheritance or something from the money that they have set aside as savings from salaries, you tend to see that they're not people who truly want to risk, because they look at it that, look, I don't want to lose money, at least in any way. I've done so well, deny myself of some things to make savings, and it's not something that I want to lose in a hurry as well. At times, a few of them tends to be unfamiliar with risk and returns as well. And so for us, we need to ask ourselves, you know, questions. Where do you belong? You know, what's your attitude to risk? In finance, generally, we all know that risk and return are, you know, directly related. You know, they're directly proportional. The higher the risk, the higher the return. So this slide basically just, you know, still tells us about the investment options that we have. You know, we can put money in equities, bank. There is one B that is there. It's called Bitcoin, and it's a symbol for Bitcoin, which is cryptocurrency that has been popular lately. Personally, I haven't made any investment in that, but it's also something that, at least in terms of investing worldwide, it's something that is really trending, and but anybody who wants to do, and that's where knowledge comes in. Before you do anything in that space, at least one needs to seek knowledge and let people who truly know about it guide. So when we look at all these, tying them up together in a post-pandemic environment, what does this pandemic environment truly represent? It's a period where we all have to reflect and probably restart. For people who have lost jobs, at least they need to start doing something. They need to think through most of the things that have happened, and devise how to move forward. One thing clearly around this period is that it is not all doom and gloom, just like I said. There's still opportunities here and there. We've seen how technology has probably taken over almost everything. I'm sure daily and in the last 1 year, we've heard a significant story of small technology companies that have done huge transactions. So things are happening. So it's not a time for us to just look around and seems as if because of the pandemic, things nothing can happen. Another thing, which is what we've done, is which is what I've said, is around strategy. What do we now need to do? Because at least strategy without adequate execution plan would not achieve anything. And we know that execution is all about everything that we've heard in terms of information. We just need to put a plan in place to ensure that we execute them properly. And once that is done, at least with proper action, at least we would know that we're on that journey to build long, enduring, and sustainable wealth. So generally, in terms of opportunity and the economy post-pandemic, what do I see? These are things that are personal, that I just feel that at least we all have to, one way or the other, be mindful of. The world, as we have come to see it, would even post pandemic remain largely the same. This issue around the economy and the world itself being very volatile, with so much uncertainty, with a lot of complex situations and ambiguity all around the place, it's not going to change. It's just the way it is. And if there's anything that will change, will be our own strategies and principles to counter most of these things that had suddenly become new normal. So if we're afraid of at least volatility or vulnerability, we need to have a very clear vision in terms of what we want to do, in terms of what we want to achieve and how we want to go about it. The uncertainty requires so much understanding of the situation that is there. Things like we've said, pandemic had also thrown up a lot of opportunities. So the uncertainty requires so much understanding for us to know what is the next thing to do. If there's any complex situation, nothing solves a complex situation like clarity. We just have a situation to break down the complexities and chart a very clear way forward. And the ambiguity of the environment can only be met by being agile. This is not the time to do analysis paralysis. This is not the time that we'll just wait and say, no, I'm still checking. I don't know. But, the truth about it is, maybe like the apostles, we should be known for our actions. We should act. And the whole thing, when we look at it, personally, I just feel that as Christians generally, and it's largely that we are, just like the sons of Issachar, who understand times and seasons. If we look at this environment clearly enough, if we look at Africa clearly enough, if we look at Nigeria clearly enough, I believe with all the world and everything that we know, we can also even come to a conclusion that for whatever it is, this period represents a very unique opportunity for every one of us to, if we haven't started this wealth building journey before this, there's no better time to start than now. We will start baby steps, we will start doing it, and before we know it, we're there. The economy of Nigeria would definitely improve. You know, we're getting to a stage where we don't have any other place to go but hope. So it is those people who have started something, it is those people who have keyed into it that will definitely hit the fruit of the land. I think my time is up for now, and because we need to create a time for question and answers. So just in case you have any question, clarification, comments, I believe I would like to hear them and give my perspective on them. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a wonderful experience sharing my thoughts with you this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you very much, sir, for that wonderful sharing, pouring out your heart to us. I'm sure people have questions. I have questions already. And before I go into question and answer, I got something that you said, that one of the ways, timeless ways of building wealth is by saving, investing, avoiding debt, and diversifying, and having the right knowledge to know exactly, to know what to save. I think these are the things we need to work on to, have consistent building of wealth. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's begin to come up with our questions. If you have questions, you can raise your hand so that we can call on you, or you can type the question so that we can read them. Okay. I'm trying to see someone has sent a question already. But let's prepare our questions. Okay, so maybe I should start. You talked about, you mentioned focusing on long term, as part of the um, ways of building wealth. And I want to ask, considering this environment that is almost, that is choking, that can choke ideas out of people, frustrate ideas out of you. And so what is the definition of that long term of building wealth? How long should we take? Because, for instance, we've been hearing leaders of tomorrow from God knows when, and we don't still know who the leaders of tomorrow are, and we don't even know whether tomorrow has come or not. So how long do you think, how long can one build that wealth? Maybe you can use personal experiences or examples to give us this um, definition of this long-term building of wealth. That's one question. The second question is, how realistic or advisable it is for a surviving average Nigerian youth to take risk? Someone who barely got out of university, hoping that after NYSC, he or she will have a job, at least to now be building life consistently and probably even go into business. And yeah, reality, we see what's going on around us. So, and you're asking that person to take, so maybe what kind of risk are you talking about? How advisable, how realistic do you think it is for such a person to take risk, as much as he or she hears about taking risk? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Becky. I don't know whether you want me to just respond to those two questions, or we want to take some additional questions.
And you can respond, sir, as well as going. I'm sure people will bring.
Okay, so the first question is how long term is really long term in terms of perspective to wealth building. Okay, so my position on that, or what I try to also say in that is, wealth building is more of a journey. It's something that for a lot of people, it is advisable for you to start early, because you are setting aside you're setting aside part of your income. And there is something a lot of people will say, that at least generally in finance, we used to say Compound interest is probably the eighth wonder of the world. If you go to an investment professional and they tell you what your 1,000 naira today, if invested at a specific rate of return, can become in 25 years, even without having to add anything to it, you'll be amazed. And but what we tend to find is that when we also take investment decisions, we're looking for something here and now. We're looking for something that we say, no, I need to make money now, and that is what gets people into a lot of these Ponzi related schemes. You know, we say I talk to the youth a lot. If you know how much goes into playing Baba Jebu, or what they call it, on daily basis, you'll be amazed. You know, and those are resources that people can, you know, bring together and use to create wealth. But because Baba Jebu will announce results, you know, at the end of the day, or following day, as the case may be, people are willing to take those higher risks just to earn at least those the return that is there. So in terms of any sustainable way of building wealth, I think we just need to take a long-term view of it. And that will also speak to even our own stage of life. What is long-term, at least to a 20-year-old, maybe 30 years time. Whereas to a 50-year-old, you can be talking of another 50-year investment, as the case may be. So we need to be mindful of that. They said, how realistic is the average Nigerian youth's ability to take risk, and what does he? My immediate response to that is, not taking any risk in itself is risky. You know, so the risk is already there. So if you choose not to do anything about it, then the risk is life. And it's one of the things that I personally, since you requested for a for personal perspective, is that for me, there's nobody about except God that truly knows what's going to happen tomorrow, you know, at least in the future. But with the little knowledge he has given us as well, if you're in a unique situation or circumstance, you will know what will likely not happen. So the truth is, if I'm at home, I don't have a job, and it is almost certain, at least if I'm not fasting, I will go hungry. So I have a choice. Rather than sit at home and mourn that I do not have jobs, is that I just go out and see whether I can find something to eat. And that is also even supported in the Bible with the story of the lepers. They were very certain that if they stay on that standpoint, they will die. But somebody one of them suggested, let us just move towards the camp of the Syrians, and they went there, and they were pleasantly surprised. So that issue of looking all around us and seeing that things are not right, things are not going well, and so with that I shouldn't do anything, is not something that we should do. There is so much that we can do about the situation that we find ourselves, and we just must do something, because not doing anything itself is worse than even doing the wrong thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Uzana was just saying that to be able to do this, you need to have ruggedness, focus, to be patient, disciplined, and determined to build wealth for a long time. Okay, thank you. There are two questions here. Someone says, thank you for the presentation. Can we have your WhatsApp number to reach you after the class? I don't know, you answered that for us. Then also, I would like you to tell us, what are the indices to look out for when going into a business partnership or when making an investment?
Wow. Okay, so let me just, at least my WhatsApp number, at least that's not a problem. At least I'll provide it. It's available, and I'll be more than pleased to at least to offer my perspective, and at least if you decide to reach out, I'll do that. But this other question is a very good one, and that's the indices to look out for when going into a business partnership. So, or when making an investment. I think, okay, business partnership may have to deal with probably the person you are partnering with, and really that's a lot more subjective, even in terms of at least you must be able to have be on the same page. You must have similar objectives and everything. That's but in making an investment, and that's, you know, I've also, like I said, I've listened to quite a number of motivational speakers, you know, speakers that will tell you just go and resign what you're doing, follow your passion, you know, just, and it's fine. But one thing that I feel we probably must do, or personally, and at least, and that is hope for debate, you know, is that I have seen a lot of times where what you are passionate about will not give you income. It will not make you money. So I don't have a problem for anybody following his passion, but you must be clear about the consequences of the passion that you are trying to follow. So in terms of making investments and taking a business decision, look at it as if put yourself in the shoes of the guys who will buy from you, the guys who will consume that service. If there is an opportunity for it, then go ahead and do it. I don't think anybody, even as Christians, you will make money selling Bibles. Because everybody is carrying one already, or the Bible app is now even available to everybody. So if you are passionate about selling Bible now, it's definitely not because you want to make money. And there are even organizations who will probably give that for free, you know, to a lot of people. So for me, I feel we need to apply wisdom and truly think of how viable would this thing be. If your interest is to make it as an investment, you can now make money whether you are passionate about it or not. And there was a joke, someone, you know, a lot of things have been going on social media today, and somebody posted one day and said, you know, I think it was on WhatsApp or something, that he said, this motivational, I said we should be passionate about. He said, is Dangote passionate about cement? And the truth is that we really don't want to, you know, is Dangote passionate about cement, or is he passionate about petrol? It's just that there's an opportunity, you know, there is so much infrastructure deficit. If you go into cement, there should be construction that is going on. There's a business opportunity there. And that's why you see that even most entrepreneurs probably also do not just do one business. They are not passionate about every of the businesses that they're doing, but they see that there's an opportunity there. So in making investment decisions as well, I think we need to at least take care of our passion, but look at it critically and see whether there is a business opportunity before we make that investment.
Wow. Thank you very much. As in, you really said well. Someone is asking here from Mr. Bennett. Thank you, sir, for the presentation. I have recently been hanging out with colleagues who have insisted that I invest all I have in acquiring a property. They even stress that even if I have to go borrowing to acquire property in a place like mainland Lagos, then it will be worth it. What practical advice would you give me on the path to follow in a time like this as regards to investing all I have in a property?
Okay, so
I don't know if you want to go, I should read another question that has been dropped there.
Okay, okay, you can read another one. At least I can also see them from here though.
Okay, so just go ahead and
is it the question about the ridiculous interest rate on savings and fixed deposits?
Yes.
I think that was the next one. Okay, so to the first one, who has been advised to invest all he has in acquiring a property? That's a very tricky one. And one of the things that, and this is more like giving investment advice. Nobody gives investment advice in isolation. You must understand the person's unique circumstance and what they want to achieve. So for example, if this person is an entrepreneur, for example, and what is being advised to do is to take his working capital to go and buy a property, then I would say I may not agree with that. But if the advice is somebody is just trying to encourage or to push to say, look, you have money, invest in property, and at some point the property will appreciate or something, just to encourage, whilst they still have another source of income or another source of revenue, then it's something the person may consider. But just carrying everything that you have and putting it on a property, I believe is a bit risky. It's actually quite risky, and one thing is with that risk also is anything can happen to the property. Like something, it may be, it may look as if nothing can go wrong, but I've seen it most times that you put money or you're advised to put money in something, and even with the great unlikelihood that something will go wrong, something can truly happen, and you may know. So I don't know him well enough. I don't know his circumstance, but putting everything he has, and he's taking his word literally, may not into a property that he probably just doesn't have so much information on, may not be the best of ideas. Then there's another very interesting question on the fixed savings and fixed deposits and everything with very bad inflation rate in Nigeria. Then is it advisable in any way to save with our banks than trade with one's money? Okay, so I think that's a great question in my opinion as well. And so what you have most of the time, you said, if you notice during the presentation, I said save, then I said invest. And for anyone who is also managing funds or managing resources, it is that you want to know the kind of the money, putting money in the bank, in quotes, is not much of an investment. At least it's the kind of rate that you get on fixed deposits and savings will not make you wealthy most of the time, except you have so much, in it and everything. But if you're interested in growing your money, and depending on your stage of life as well, savings accounts alone may not be the best thing that you put all your money. But let me also clarify that to say that what we've seen lately in Nigeria specifically is that we've seen a massive drop in rates. There was a time that it was, even 90-day, 180-day, 1 year government securities, we're giving double digits, and I'm talking double digits, 16, 18, 20% at times. And with such high rates, it was more like a no-brainer for people. Put money in there, you get 20%. But now, in order to encourage banks lending to the real sector and all those things, those rates have come down significantly. And what we have now is that anybody who has money in any savings account, given the level of inflation in Nigeria, you are losing money. There is just no doubt about it. You are losing money because you are earning more like 3-5%, and inflation, even as at the last reported figure, is now about 16-17%. So you have in real terms, you have lost 14% if you hold that money, if you keep that money in that bank for another 1 year, so to speak. So for anyone who has an opportunity to trade with, anybody who at least have a trade that they can do with their funds, I believe they're better off than keeping it in a savings account. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Before I go on to ask you to answer that another question on that Zoom, someone asked a question on YouTube, and the person says, when a financial guru like you says they haven't invested in something, I take notice. Is there any reason you have stayed away from digital currency stroke Bitcoin?
Uh, maybe, maybe it's just that maybe I'm a bit old school, and
Okay.
apart from being old school, I said something around knowledge and having clarity. I'm just and really, so to speak. I think early this year and everything, I've been trying to do a lot more research on cryptocurrency as well. Generally, to just have a better understanding of what it can be used for. And when I'm also very mindful that you also don't want a situation whereby you are left behind on an innovative, on an innovative product. Because for a lot of people at some point, when during the olden days when there was trade by barter, when people invented what we now call money, at least I'm sure a few people will have, kicked against it. And I believe those were part of the things that we're hearing around cryptos, that even nations, even governments, even central banks do not have full understanding of what it's all about. And what I would also probably want to preach is, at least something that's a bit that's a bit safe at this time. But I personally just haven't done it because I don't think I have enough information on it and how to profit from it, apart from what I hear every day that it is now 60,000, and 2 weeks after it's $30,000 and everything. So the volatility is just, and the risk involved is quite a bit for me to deal with.
Talking about having knowledge before looking before leaping. Okay, someone sent this to me privately, so I'm not sure you are seeing me. The person says, hello, I want to ask our facilitator about investment advice for people in diaspora. What can we or should we be investing in? Thank you.
Okay, I want to, is the person asking for what they can invest in Nigeria, or probably what they can invest in generally? Because I think it's the same law of investment almost everywhere in the world. So I also feel that even people in Nigeria are trying to invest in US equities and every other thing that is happening globally. So the principle of investing truly won't change. So there are places, there are different asset classes where you have opportunities. Equities is still there, real estate, even fixed income and everything. So one thing in managing investment generally, especially for people, it's all around creating a portfolio that has a clear objective of what you want to achieve and setting up
The
those
person says
portfolio.
investment in Nigeria.
Okay, investment in Nigeria. Okay,
Yes.
yeah. So at least I guess that's not, because at least the person is in diaspora. So in my opinion, at least one of the things that we still. So for example, last year our equity market was probably the best performing in the world. At least the return on the market was well over 50%, was about 50.3%. And so buying local equity, is probably good for them, at least depending on what they want to achieve. And in making investment decisions, at least what's it's very important is your objective. What do you want to achieve? Do you have a return objective in mind? And how do you set it up to achieve it? So whether it's the same equities that you're doing, whether it's trying to invest in real estate or property that you want to do, or you want to at least invest in government securities or fixed income, is also something that one needs to look at very well and tailor those portfolios to ensure that they achieve those investment objectives that you have in mind.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. I have about three questions there. I don't know if you have seen this one from Mr. Babatunde. It says, you earlier expressed a strong sentiment against debt. Now, in business schools, you are told to either finance or scale your business through debt, equity, or savings. And debt is actually the less risky of the lot. Can you help to balance this school of thought vis-a-vis your own professional advice?
Let me, okay. Okay, so I thank you for that question. And so actually, debt is never the less risky of those sources that Mr. Oladele had mentioned. And even in finance, there's something that's called gearing, and that just speaks to the amount of debt that you have in your capital structure. And the truth is, once debt is not less risky, it may be cheaper. If we're talking about, the cost of capital, it may be cheaper for a business to raise debt rather than equity, but definitely in terms of risk. And what is risk? Risk is all about uncertainty. The truth is that if you are putting your money into something, and it is your money, even if you lose it, nothing will happen to you. But if it's money that you have borrowed from someone, if you lose that money, then you have to pay back the person. So you are carrying more risk. And so introduction of debt generally introduces risk. What finance would say or would tell you is that debt is like a two-edged sword. It's and that's why it is called leverage. Just like when people say in life that you have leverage, is as if there is support that you have, because if you can earn a return that is more than what you are paying for the debt, then it can significantly magnify your return on equity because you have introduced debt. So it can magnify your return, but just in case something happens to it as well, it increases the riskiness of your business. So it actually increases risk and not reduce it.
Yeah. Okay. So another one is this also to be full corrections of economics in the past 4 years?
Pardon?
The person is asking that is this the right time to move back into stock, seeing that there seem to be full corrections from the performance of our economy in the past 4 years? I hope you understand that, sir.
Okay, yeah, I think I try. I try as much as possible to. I get some of these kind of questions regularly as well, and someone in terms of trying to time the market, to say is this a good time to do this or not, and that's for me it's always very subjective as well. One thing about the market is that it is difficult to time. You probably may never, even when you do and you time it correctly, to a lot of times you're just lucky. It's not like there's really anything, because it's something that can, at least for very efficient markets, it could have gone either way. But looking at what we've done, so if you check, for example, our market, and I'm talking of our equity market, and I feel that's what the person is also referring to. And the numbers are interesting. The kind of numbers that we see, whether we're looking at it from dividend yield, the kind of things we're seeing about PE ratios, and they're truly attractive. But we still know that market is demand and supply, so it depends. You can buy that, and that's one of the reasons why we say have a long-term view. For anything, whether investing or anything in life, is that even when that thing doesn't make sense, they can happen for a while. But at the end of in the long run, when something is not sustainable, we do not have a choice. So when you look at, so for example, there's some stocks in Nigerian markets as we speak, that the dividend that those people would pay, and those companies will pay, currently probably will give you about 13% dividend yield in 1 year. And it's better than putting that money in fixed income or with bank that will pay you 3%. So even if that stock comes down in price, you will still earn your dividend, that's 13% of the stock that you're buying. And some of those stocks, even when you look at it, there's something that we call PE ratio, and it just clearly tells you about more like something we call payback period, how long it will take you to recoup your investment in a business. And you see a business that has been around for a while, and the PE ratio is less than 3. That means within 3 years, if the company decides to pay out all its earnings, you will have recovered your money. And that's anywhere in the world is a decent investment. So the valuations are cheap, the things are there. In the short run, can the markets still remain the same or not go up? Probably. But there are some fundamentally sound stocks and investment decisions that we can make that in the long run will make a lot of sense. And because we just know they're cheap. So in terms of timing, to say, do I think this is the worst and everything? I would say it's neither here nor there. But generally, in terms of our economy, I also feel that we're at a stage or at a point whereby I believe the graph should start looking up. At least that's my personal opinion.
Thank you very much, sir. And there's another question. I don't know what happened. I was temporarily locked out. About talking about investment. And from Fortunimi, he said he invested 100. I can't see it again now because I was logged out. It's from Fortunimi talking about investment, and he said the regulatory body, if there is any at all, are not doing right at defending. Yes, he has asked the question again. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I think I missed it out. Okay, I think the regulatory body, if any, are not doing good job in defending investors. Recently, I invested 100,000 monthly for 2 years. And at the end of 2 years, I was giving 25,000 Naira interest on 2.4 million. They explained it was due to COVID. I think this is a sad occurrence in Nigeria. Okay. All right. So Mr.
When you talk about investing.
Okay. So Mr. Fortunimi, so for me, I'm not sure of what you invested in. If it's a fixed income investment, I believe the terms will have been very clear. The COVID is not meant to affect the terms of your investment. If you're expecting a specific rate of return that has been pre-agreed. So, and truly, if there's anything lately in Nigeria, I think the regulators, most of the regulators that we have, are probably now alive to their responsibilities. So if that business, I doubt whether the business that you gave the money to is being regulated. So you can find out what the regulatory, at least organization that is responsible for that business is. And if they have gone against your agreement, you can report that. And I believe you will get justice before with a lot of regulators. If there's anything, most regulators that at least I know of SEC, I know of CBN, they would.
He's saying is Leadway. Leadway has this monthly investment. Leadway has insurance.
Hey, okay, so for me with lead, okay, now I don't like getting so specific, but now that you have mentioned it's an insurance business, so what I would advise is that check the fine details very well of what you put money into. If it is something that you have agreed before, except they have a way to maneuver. But I do not think that they will just pay you interest that hasn't been agreed just because of COVID. And I believe you can take it up with anyone. They also have a regulator as well. So if you choose to take it up with the regulator, I believe they would have to come up and be alive to their responsibilities.
Wow. Thank you very much. I don't know if you still have more questions. I don't think so. Let me check on YouTube. I don't think so. Okay. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, sir. You have really done justice to this topic. And on behalf of my team, the department, my leaders, we want to say thank you. So I'm going to hand over to my HOD to take on from there. Thank you, sir. God bless you. We hope next time we will call upon you, you will answer us.
Thank you very much,
and, for,
Becky.
and for those who want your WhatsApp number, your WhatsApp number.
Yes, I'll just go. Okay, so let me just quickly share my screen again. I think that number that is on the presentation is okay. Yes, this number.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just
Can,
leave
can
that.
you make it bigger so that we can see it? It's
I
a
will
bit.
just leave that on. Okay, it's a bit. Sorry about that. Okay, is it fine?
Oh, great. It's
Yeah.
fine now.
The email is there as well. These days, we can afford not to include the office address because people don't go out again. So, well, at least the email and the telephone number will do justice to that.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. HOD, sir, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Yomi, for such a very well-resourced and nicely presented session. We are very grateful that you honored our invitation to be part of this training and you poured out yourself, sharing from your repertoire of knowledge and experience with us. The words cannot quantify our gratitude. And I also want to thank everybody who made time to be part of this. I think, thank you very much because even the speaker alone wouldn't have had a nice time talking to himself. So the audience are also part of the training experience. And thanks to everybody for turning out in good number, both there and on YouTube. I think we have like 5 people watching us from YouTube, and maybe others from Facebook, because I also shared the session on my Facebook timeline. So thank you very much, Yomi. Thanks to everybody that came, and thanks to Mr. Becky for coordinating us all. So we look forward to seeing you at our next session next month. I think that will be the 3rd Saturday in April. So from here, I want to say thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oladele. It's been a pleasure being part of your afternoon. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So see you next month. Bye.
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 Let's unmute ourselves and let's
Bye, everybody. Mr. Becky, well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank God this is gone. So next month.
You are blessed.